Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Bookish Quilter. It's been about a year since I posted a video and it's time to get back into it. I just want to say there was no terrible reason why I didn't. It just was being busy, having other projects, and just really not wanting to add to my huge pile of quilts at the time. Today I'm going to talk about piecing backs. I do a lot of scrap quilts, and I realized it was rather foolish to purchase fabric for the back of a quilt if I didn't purchase any fabric for the front. So I was able to use quite a bit from my stash, and I'm going to show you how I did it. The first thing I'm going to say, though, before I show you the quilts is, if you only need a few extra inches in width or length, do not add those extra inches to the sides or the top and bottom. If it's only a couple of inches, it's extremely difficult to line up your seams evenly when it comes time to quilt. This is true whether you're going to hand quilt, machine quilt on a domestic, or long arm. I do all three, so I should know. It's better to take your largest piece of backing that you have, split it down the middle, and put that extra fabric down that. Whether you're splitting it horizontally or vertically makes no difference. And it does not have to be exactly in the middle. You can go a third of the way up or down, a third of the way over, or both. So I'm going to show you some quilts where I've pieced the back. And I'll show you the fronts of the quilts too. So this is a work in progress. It's been in progress for many years. I'm hand quilting it. And this is Bonnie Hunter's Free Pattern Strip Twist. I call the fabric June Cleaver's dresses because it looks like those little prints that were in shirtwaist dresses of the late 50s and early 60s. I did not have quite enough fabric to do the design through the whole quilt, so I did a large center block in a dahlia pattern, and I think it looks quite nice. The borders on both the center medallion and the quilt itself is a vintage fabric, as are the pieces used in the strip twist. The backing fabric is more of the green print, which I believe was 36 inches wide at that time. It's too old to have been 45. And then some pieces of what I believe to have been 108-inch wide fabric. I had quite a bit of this at one time. I came into possession through someone in my guild. So as you can see, I put the largest piece down the middle and then put maybe 10 or 12-inch wide strips at both ends. I'm hand quilting the quilt. It's in a Baptist fan design, and Bonnie Hunter has actually seen the quilt twice. She came to my guild to speak 2 times over the years. The first time I brought it to show and tell, I had just finished the top. The second time I had started the quilting, and she did remember it, which was interesting. The next quilt I'm going to show is also pieced similarly. I have a wide piece down the center and 2 fairly wide pieces on each side. What I did with this was I used my border fabric. I had just enough to put a strip down the center, which gave me the width I needed. And this was a fun way to do it. I really like this. I like the difference in scale, the little blue and white print and the larger blue and purple and turquoise print. Oh, the quilt itself is totally from my stash. I may have shown it in the background of one of my previous videos. It's called Philomena's Folly. Philomena was one of my great-great-grandmothers, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. This is not a published pattern at this point. One of these days I'm going to write it up. I've been meaning to for a couple of years now. The next quilt is not a scrap quilt. It's a quilt that I purchased fabric for, I believe it was a half-yard bundle. And after I made the quilt, I decided I was going to do a workshop for my guild and show how I made the pattern. It is called Foolproof Scrappy or Not Hunter Star. And it's got large Hunter Star blocks. Very, very, very easy to do. No special tools. But it is a fairly large quilt. And I was planning on purchasing fabric for the backing because I did buy all the fabric for the front. But I was at a local quilt guild vending at their quilt show, and they had a boutique where members had donated fabrics and other items that they no longer wanted. And I purchased a piece of this pineapple cheater cloth that was just perfect for the colors in the front of the quilt. It's 45 inches wide, and then however long it was long enough for me to run it down the quilt, but not wide enough. I couldn't do two widths of it. So I purchased this green reproduction fabric and split it so I can put the cheater cloth in the center, the green on both sides. Again, I can't really hold it up to show you the entire quilt. I was planning on doing this outside and draping it over my back fence, but it's just too hot and sticky today. But again, do not use narrow strips on the side, whether it be the sides or the top and bottom, because there's no way you're going to get it lined up perfectly, and it's going to be far more noticeable if it's just a little strip. If you're off an inch or so on over a 12-inch width, you're hardly going to see it. This is just a backing, and I'll show you the quilt top for it later. And I pieced this both horizontally and vertically. I started with the pink print in the center, and then I split the yellow along the fold and put that on the top and the bottom. It still was not big enough. I needed extra width, so I took the green fabric and put the green on both sides. And these are all floral type prints, and the top itself is predominantly floral in pastel colors, so this backing will go. At some point I will probably do a demo on how to make this quilt. It's a great way to use up scraps, and you can also use up charm squares with it if you like. Mine's a little bigger than a charm square in the center, but I will show how to do them in various sizes. So again, this is just a scrappy fun quilt that I had laying around, almost done, and I decided I was going to finish it up and put it in my to be quilted pile, which is where it's been languishing for several months. I do have a long arm, and I quilt for people in my community, so sometimes very often my quilts take the back row there. This is one of a set of 4 patterns that I did. I call the set of them Ton of Bricks. They use what I call bricks, what other people call potato chip blocks. They're all 2.5 by 4.5 inch pieces. And I just did a simple strippy quilt. These are bright colors. They're not necessarily my favorite colors. I tend to prefer blues and greens and the cooler side of the spectrum. But it was a fun little quilt. I didn't have enough for the backing, and this one I pieced horizontally. I took rows of my 2.5 inch strips, put them together, added a few strips of the backing fabric here and there, and that's the back. As I mentioned, Bonnie Hunter came to my guild twice, and the first time she came, she was taken to Narragansett Beach. I live in Rhode Island, and Narragansett Beach is a few miles down the road. Later on, during Hurricane Sandy, she was watching the devastation of the area, and she designed a quilt pattern called Narragansett Blues, which is in her second Leader and Ender book. I believe it's called More Adventures with Leader and Ender. So when she came for the second time, I was program chair of my guild, and I said, we have to do Narragansett Blues because it was designed after she came to this area. So the Narragansett Blues in the book has a pieced border with lots of little squares. By the time I got done making this quilt, I didn't want to do more little squares, but this is my Narragansett Blues. And as I said, I'm sorry I could not do it over my back fence because it would have been really fun to see. Actually, it goes this way. And this sat in a pile for a long time because I didn't know what I was going to do with the back. And again, I didn't purchase any of the fabric for this quilt, so I didn't want to purchase anything for the backing. Well, I save all my little long-arming backing strips that I trim off the top and bottom and the sides of the quilts that I do. And the ones that were 2.5 inches or wider, I cut into 2.5 inch wide strips. I added some miscellaneous jelly roll pieces from my stash, and I cut a lot of pieces from my stash, and I did a reversible quilt. I did a sort of a jelly roll race variation. There's no pattern to this. I just took the strips, whatever length they were. If they were very long, some of them I cut down, and I took some bright colored squares and just pieced it all together. And I'm very happy with it. It's not perfect. It was hard to line up the strips, but it really was a fun project to do. And last but not least is a quilt that's very near and dear to my own heart. If there is a hobby that I'm possibly even more passionate about than quilting, it's genealogy, specifically genetic genealogy, where you're working with the DNA of your shared matches. And I decided I was going to do a family tree quilt. Well, if you've done genealogy of any kind, you know that there are certain lines of your family that you can follow back pretty far, and others where you can't get much farther back than a grandparent or great-grandparent. Well, mine is a very lopsided family tree, as you can see. This is not going to ever be a symmetrical quilt. Every person on my family tree has a leaf, and every couple, if I have both the husband and wife, I have a mulberry. 7 of my 8 great-grandparents emigrated from Calabria, the 8th one from Campania. And at one time, Calabria was one of the main silk-producing regions of Europe. So I decided to call this Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush, using mulberry leaves, and then every couple has a little purple mulberry. And this is a work in progress. As I progress on my tree, I add more leaves. It's been a little while since I found any new ancestors. This is only direct ancestors, and you know, parents, grandparents, great. I have one line of the family going back to a 12 times great-grandfather in the 1500s, I believe. Yeah, they think he was born about 1530. But let's go to the back of the quilt. It's all family photos. I have pictures of me as a baby somewhere here, right here. This is my first New Year's Eve. I'm in my mother's arms. I have my mom, my dad, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and I even have one set of great-great-grandparents. I have more distant relatives. I have my grandmother's cousin. I have my great-grandfather's brother, who I got from a third cousin who lives in Melbourne, Australia. I have passenger lists for a couple of the ships some of them came over on. And so I use the special fabric that you can print on. And I printed the photos, and then I did randomly sized borders around them to fit the photos and fit into rows. So this was, you know, just a very different way to do a family quilt. So that's going to be it for today. I am hoping to do more videos very soon, but right now I have a couple more days left to my vacation. Where I work was closed this week, and I'm working on finishing up a couple of quilt projects. So I don't want to start anything else until I get those done. Hopefully they'll be done within the next couple days, and I may even be able to do another video before I go back to work. But stay tuned. I hope you've learned something from this. And again, in a perfect world, if it weren't so hot, I would have been outside showing these on a fence, so you would have been able to see the whole thing. But I hope you were able just to get the idea and learn from it, and learn that you do not have to purchase backing fabric for scrap quilts, because we all know what happens to leftover scrap fabric. When you shut the lights, they have babies. So stay tuned. I hope you like, subscribe, gives it a thumbs up, and I will see you very soon.